Thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. My name is Barry Coleman. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Canola Growers Association. The Northern Canola Growers Association is around to promote conditions favorable to the production, marketing, processing, and use of canola. We want to promote efficient production through farmer education, like things like today, public and private research, and we want to develop and implement policies that will enhance development of the canola industry. Now, the canola acres for 2024 were at a record 2.15 million acres. The acres in the state have been increasing the last 4 years in a row. Record production, 3.92 billion pounds, up 15%. The U.S. had about 2.71 million acres, 4.8 billion pounds of production, and the lion's share of the production was in North Dakota. We had an 1,850 pound average for the state. You'll see this chart here shows kind of where the canola production is in the state. A lot of it's in the northern regions of the state. We've had quite a growth in canola in the northwest portions of the state, those 6 counties. In the last few years, we have almost 1 million acres of production just in the northwest part of the state right now. But anyway, last year we had 35 counties that had record acres of production. We're getting to have more and more canola down in the southeast part of the state, which has been some new growth in the last few years. Big changes have come to final plant dates in North Dakota this year. You'll see the current or the 2024 plant dates right here and the new plant dates that are in effect this year. We had received feedback from growers, and particularly in the southern part of the state, that they needed more time to get their canola, and they feel that planting later in the spring was the most optimum for them. So we generated some information through date of planting studies to support a change in the final plant dates. And we have been making the case to RMA for years that the southern areas of the state need later dates. And so RMA granted the request just after 1 year of data collection. And you'll see that we now have an extra 15 days to get the crop or extra 10 days rather in the southwest, extra 5 days in the southeast. And then you'll see the purple area that June 1st is an extra week to get the crop in there. So that was a major change that we were able to implement through the RMA for canola growers. We'll certainly welcome the efforts to improve the growth of canola. NDSU completed an economic contribution analysis recently, and that shows that the canola industry has a $2 billion impact to the region. Half of it comes from canola production and half comes from handling, transportation, and processing. So 5,500 jobs, $500 million in labor income, and $50 million in state and local government revenues are attributed to canola. Now, some of the things we're working on, like some federal policy issues, we're dealing with an anti-seed oils misinformation. Some of you may have heard some of the information recently out there that talks about seed oils. And we worked with the American Soybean Association, the U.S. Canola Association, and several others to have a review that was written by 7 nutrition experts at different academic and research institutions that had an article published in the British Journal of Nutrition, which showed that significant clinical evidence supports the beneficial impacts of replacing saturated fats with unsaturated fats that are found in seed oils, and basically said that the intake of the omega-6 linoleic acid in seed oils does not increase inflammation. In fact, it decreases inflammation. So we've heard that the science on fat sources has been consistent for decades. Swapping out high saturated fat for low saturated fats like canola oil improves your health outcomes. And so we've been seeing many posts recently from health experts, dietitians, and research scientists who have been debunking the claims that are out there on seed oils. So we want to ensure that any federal policies on health and nutrition related to canola and seed oils is science-based. Canola has been proven to reduce the risk of coronary heart disease, and will fight any efforts to revoke any FDA-approved health claim for canola. This chart shows a lot of different makeup of the different oils. You'll see red is not necessarily good. You'll see the canola oil has the lowest amount of saturated fat at 7%. A good ratio of the linoleic and the omega-3, the orange. You'll see the ratio of 2 to 1 for canola. So a very good fat profile for canola we've been advocating for years. We have our annual canola expo every year in conjunction with the durum growers in Minot at the Crop Outlook and International Durum Forum. So this November, we encourage growers to, if they're able to join us at that annual event. Another thing I want to talk about is, as far as federal policies, is positioning canola for best possible outcomes in the biofuels market. Now, in the last year, I had spoken to you folks about some research that we did through the Department of Energy's Argonne National Lab to try to get canola in the GREET model. The 45Z came out recently, and it was not favorable to canola. And so we're working to try to figure out how we can get the best possible outcome for canola. Now, we have a plan with the 45Z that's been announced, and our plan is to get rid of ILUC, which is called the Indirect Land Use Change Impacts of Biofuels. It relates to the unintended consequences of releasing carbon into the atmosphere, and it uses arbitrary and inconsistent emissions factors that unfairly penalize crop-based feedstocks. So this would have a huge impact on canola. For our carbon intensity score to remove ILUC, we're going to be working with folks like the American Soybean Association and others to get this change made, and this will be a huge win for canola if we can get this removed, making it competitive with other feedstocks and preserving this growing market for canola oil. Another thing that's a huge issue recently, if people have seen the markets, we've had a terrible impact on canola prices in the last 3 weeks due to tariffs or tariff uncertainty. And we're going to be making the case that the canola industry supports free trade with Canada and Mexico. And we're going to be advocating that the USDA supply economic loss payments to the canola growers to make up for the loss that we're seeing right now from tariff impacts. As of this point today, we're over $60 an acre loss, or $162 million to the industry. So we're going to ask that the USDA implement market loss payments for producers to offset these market impacts. We dedicate over $400,000 in research every year to the canola industry. You'll see some of the topics that I've listed here on the screen. We'll hear about some of those today during this webinar. But we're looking at verticillium stripe, which is a new disease that has really kind of taken hold in North Dakota and Canada in the last few years. We think a lot of it was attributed to unusually wet weather conditions, but we're certainly trying to get a handle on the spread of verticillium and how to manage it. Looking at blackleg and flea beetles. Brian Jenks is doing a great job of keeping an eye on what's coming up in the herbicide world and what we can do to make sure we ensure we've got products for canola in the future for herbicides and battling resistance. We've got freezing tolerance research being done at NDSU and the ARS, looking at club root, and we're also looking at some impacts and trying to increase the levels of canola meal that are used in certain segments of the livestock markets. So this chart here shows you the tremendous growth in canola oil use in the U.S. in the last few years. Back in 2021-22, you'll see 1.3 billion pounds was used for biofuels. And at the end of that year, we got our petition approved by EPA to allow canola oil for use or to generate RIN credits for renewable diesel. And you'll see the floodgates were opened. We went from 1.3 billion pounds to 3 billion, now up to 4.4 billion. And this year we're supposed to be at 5 billion pounds. So just unheard of growth in the canola oil market there. And so that is the market that we're trying to protect, is that 5 billion pounds of canola oil that is supposed to be used for biofuels this year. This will be the first year where biofuels are supposed to exceed the food use of canola oil. But the fact that we're projected to have record use of canola oil is very good news. But we're certainly battling many issues right now, which is, again, the tariffs that I mentioned, the anti-seed oils misinformation, a lot of things that we're working on to try to preserve the market and make sure that we can continue this growth in the canola industry. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining. We've got our website, northerncanola.com, where you can go to get daily bids on the website. Shoot us an email if you want to get our monthly newsletter and more information. So thank you very much.